73 years. 73 long years. And in all that time, I thought I had learned. I thought I knew everything that mattered. But now I see the truth. You can live your life thinking you are safe, thinking the days ahead are endless. You build your walls, you make your plans, you convince yourself the worst could never happen to you until it does. The hardest lessons are never the ones we see coming. They creep in slowly, quietly, like shadows stretching across a room you once thought bathed in sunlight. I want you to understand something before it's too late. Something I didn't understand until decades had slipped through my fingers like sand. We all think we have time. We all think we can fix it tomorrow, or next year, or when the right moment comes. But time doesn't wait. I've watched friends, family, and strangers stumble into choices that seemed small, harmless, even sensible at the moment. And yet those choices, those tiny decisions, set the stage for regrets that can last a lifetime. I wish someone had warned me. I wish I had listened. But warnings are easy to ignore when they whisper behind the clamor of everyday life. When we are young, or even just younger, we believe ourselves invincible. Tonight, I am 73. I am tired. I am burdened by the knowledge that most of what I thought would save me, most of it failed. And I want you to hear what I have to say. Because if you don't, if you ignore this, you may not even recognize the moment you lose your chance. You may wake up one day and find yourself staring at a life you barely understand, filled with mistakes you can't undo. And that is when regret begins. I am about to tell you a story. My story. A story of comfort, denial, and the choices that led me here. But before I do, there is one thing I need to ask you. Are you truly ready to see yourself in the mirror before it's too late? Because once you see it, you may never look away. When I was younger, much younger, the world felt safe. Not just the world outside my door, but the one inside my mind. The life I built, the routines, the habits, the small comforts, they felt permanent, unshakable. I had a job I could rely on. A neighborhood where everyone knew your name. Bills were paid on time. Friends were dependable. And love, well, it seemed steady enough. Steady was all I thought I needed. And in that steadiness, I believed in certainty. I believed that as long as I followed the rules, as long as I stayed careful, nothing terrible could touch me. I didn't notice how slowly, imperceptibly, the cracks were forming. History is full of this illusion. Societies, civilizations, empires, they all believed in their safety. Rome, before it burned. Nations, before they fell. Families, before they fractured. And like them, I too ignored the warnings. I dismissed the little unease that nagged at the edges of my consciousness. A friend lost to addiction. A colleague quietly burned out. A marriage that cooled without fanfare. I told myself, it is not my problem. I told myself, tomorrow, I'll deal with it. I told myself, I am safe. I was not. There is a peculiar psychology to comfort. It lulls you. It convinces you that the world is predictable, that your decisions are sound, that your life is normal. I look back now and see how overconfidence took root. Small victories, paying bills on time, promotions at work, recognition from peers, became proof that my life was controlled, proof that I was untouchable. But control is a fragile illusion, and the higher you climb on it, the harder the fall. The first warning came quietly, not a thunderclap, not a crisis, just a moment. So subtle, I barely noticed it at the time. A friend, someone I trusted, quietly mentioning that I seemed different. Different how? I asked. Just distracted, stressed, distant. I laughed it off, brushed it aside, told myself it was nothing. But the seed had been planted. The first crack had appeared in the walls I had built around myself. It's remarkable, in retrospect, how easily I ignored it. The mind has a way of rationalizing what it cannot face. We convince ourselves that the warning signs are anomalies, that bad things happen to others, never to us. I had convinced myself of my safety, and in that belief, I unknowingly walked toward the edge. I was about to learn that safety is never permanent, that life does not pause to let us prepare, that every comfort, every routine, every familiar face can vanish if we do not see the cracks while they are small. And when the first cracks appear, most people, they still do not notice. The first cracks are never dramatic. They are small, almost imperceptible. A glance, a comment, a feeling you try to dismiss. For me, it began with memory. Minor forgetfulness. Misplacing keys, names that once came easily now hovering at the edge of my mind. I laughed it off. Everyone does this, I told myself. It's nothing. But it wasn't just nothing. It was the first whisper that life was changing, that my sense of control, my illusion of safety, was more fragile than I had allowed myself to believe. Then came the work. Projects that had once been effortless now demanded extra hours, extra focus. Mistakes that never happened before began to appear. Emails unanswered, deadlines missed, frustration mounting quietly, like water seeping through a crack in a dam. I noticed it in others too. Friends I had counted on, they began to behave differently. Subtle slights, shifts in tone, invitations that never arrived, connections that faded. I told myself, it's just busy schedules. Life happens. But the cracks were widening. I didn't yet know it, but ignoring them was a choice. There is a peculiar kind of denial that creeps over a person at this stage. You start to rationalize. You rewrite reality. It sits normal. It sits temporary. I still catch up tomorrow. I did this for years, and every time I chose denial, the cracks grew larger. Then the health signs began. Minor aches, restless nights, an occasional dizzy spell that I convinced myself was fatigue. Doctors shrugged. Friends reassured me. I reassured myself. The first real warning signs are cruelly subtle. They arrive like shadows at dusk, just at the edge of your perception. And if you look away, if you pretend they don't exist, they multiply. And most people do look away. I did. I ignored my intuition. I ignored the quiet messages from my own body. I ignored the little alarms in my relationships and my work, and I continued walking forward, convinced that my life was steady, that I was safe. But safety was a lie. It's only when the cracks become visible to everyone else that the fear begins to take root. Others start noticing your forgetfulness, your exhaustion, your missteps. They begin to ask questions. They begin to watch you, waiting for the moment you will finally see it yourself. And yet, the mind resists. Even when confronted, it rationalizes, it justifies, it denies. I remember the first time someone directly confronted me about my health, about my life choices, about my habits. I laughed. I brushed it aside. I stand fine, I said. It stems nothing. But inside, a tiny cold seed of dread had taken root. The cracks were no longer small. They were branching, weaving through every part of my life. And I had no idea that the moment of reckoning was approaching faster than I could imagine. And when it comes, when you finally feel the weight of what you've been ignoring, you realize that seeing the cracks too late is worse than never seeing them at all. The cracks I had ignored, they began to grow into fractures. At first, it was subtle. A missed appointment here, a forgotten commitment there. Friends started to worry. Colleagues whispered. Family noticed the fatigue, that never seemed to leave me. But I told myself the same lie I had been telling for years. I am fine. Everything is fine. Denial is a powerful thing. It's the mind's armor against fear. It allows you to function, even when the world is quietly unraveling beneath your feet. And function I did. On the surface, life appeared unchanged. I went to work, smiled at neighbors, kept my routines. To everyone else, I seemed steady, solid, unshakable. But inside I was crumbling. Small things began to cascade. Missed deadlines turned into lost opportunities. Health issues became persistent, stubborn, impossible to ignore. The first doctor's warning, ignored. The second, rationalized. The third, shrugged away. People tried to intervene. Friends offered advice. Family suggested rest. Medical professionals urged caution. And I resisted. I told myself I knew better. I told myself I could handle it. I told myself I was strong enough. It's remarkable how easy it is to justify choices that will hurt you in the long run. How simple it is to weave a narrative that keeps the fear at bay. But life does not forgive indecision. Life does not wait for us to be ready. Life exploits our hesitation and grows stronger while we deny. Soon consequences became impossible to hide. The missed moments piled up. Mistakes compounded. Opportunities vanished. Relationships strained. The walls I had built to protect myself now felt like cages closing in. And yet, I still resisted the truth. It was easier to blame others. Easier to blame circumstances. Easier to pretend that the cracks were someone else's fault. That the failures were temporary. That tomorrow would fix everything. But tomorrow is not promised. I began to feel the weight of what I had ignored. A subtle panic, almost imperceptible at first, then growing. Nights were restless. Days were heavy. Moments of clarity, too brief, would hit me like cold water, reminding me that time was running out. And the people around me, they began to change too. Their patience wore thin. Their concern became frustration. Their love strained under the weight of my denial. I realized then something that had been creeping in for years, the truth I had refused to face. Denial is not protection. Denial is a trap. And the longer you stay inside it, the harder it becomes to escape. There is a moment in every life when you can still act, when you can still repair the fractures, when you can still see the cracks and step away from the edge. I missed that moment. And once that moment passes, once the point of no return arrives, there is no going back. There comes a moment in life, a single point, where the path splits. One direction leads to repair, to recovery, to redemption. The other leads only to consequence, to regret, to loss that cannot be undone. I missed that moment. It was subtle, almost invisible at the time, a chance to stop, to listen, to act. Friends had urged me to get help. Family had pleaded. Doctors had given me options, clear, achievable steps that could have changed everything. And I convinced myself it wasn't urgent, that I had time, that I was fine. But time is cruel. It doesn't bend to our desires. It doesn't wait while we feel ready. It moves forward relentlessly, and when it passes, there is no rewind. I remember the day clearly, the day when I realized I had crossed the invisible line. I was sitting in my kitchen, the sunlight falling through the window, thinking about all the little decisions I had ignored, all the subtle warnings I had dismissed. And for the first time, I felt it, the weight of finality. There is no fanfare at the point of no return, no warning sirens, no dramatic flash of understanding, just silence. And in that silence, you understand that the choices you made or refused to make have locked you into a path that cannot be altered. I could see it in my own life. Relationships strained beyond repair, opportunities lost forever, health deteriorating, a future that I had once believed was bright, now shadowed by the consequences of my own denial. The truth hit me like a cold wind. I had been warned, I had been given a chance, and I had ignored it. I had been standing at the edge of safety, and I stepped over without even noticing. And that is how regret begins. The first cracks grow into fractures. The fractures become faults, and when the point of no return arrives, you are powerless to stop the collapse. I tried in small ways to fix what I could, but some things are irreparable. The moment passed, and all that remained was the knowledge that I could have chosen differently. I could have listened. I could have acted. I could have saved myself, but I didn't act. And now, all I can do is watch as the consequences unfold. And once you reach that point, you realize that regret is not just an emotion. It is a life lived too late. Once the point of no return is crossed, the collapse is inevitable. It doesn't happen all at once. It doesn't arrive with a single dramatic event. No, it creeps slowly, like fog rolling through a valley. At dawn, subtle at first, almost imperceptible, then thicker, heavier, smothering everything in its path. I began to feel it in every part of my life. My health, fragile. My relationships, strained, fragile as glass. My career, opportunities lost, doors closed. I felt the weight of every choice I had ignored, every warning I had brushed aside, every moment I had postponed acting. And the silence was deafening. It's not chaos that breaks you. It's quiet decay, the slow erosion of everything you once believed was secure. You wake up one day and realize that the foundation has been weakened for years, and now it's crumbling beneath you. Friends tried to reach me. Family reached out. But the walls I had built, the defenses of denial, they kept me isolated. The shame of failure, the fear of admitting how far I had fallen, it kept me silent. There were nights I could not sleep, days I could barely face. The simplest tasks became monumental, and all around me, life continued, seemingly indifferent. And then, small tragedies, missed opportunities, relationships ended, health deteriorating further. The consequences of delayed action became painfully clear. I had lived long enough to see how every choice or refusal to choose carries a weight, and I could feel it pressing down on me. A suffocating gravity that pulls you into despair. I am 73. And the collapse is not a single moment. It is a series of moments, countless, small, devastating in aggregate. A slow motion fall, where every misstep echoes louder than the last. And yet, life goes on around you.
Neighbors laugh, children play. The world is oblivious to the quiet destruction unfolding in your corner of it.
I watched, helpless, confusion, fear, helplessness, the kind of emptiness that comes when you finally see the full cost of your choices. Some people reach this stage and find the strength to fight back, to rebuild, to claw their way toward redemption. I was too late. Too many cracks, too many fractures, too much ignored, and in the end what remains is not dramatic. There are no headlines, no catastrophe for the world to see, only the heavy stillness of consequences, of a life lived too long in denial. A slow, quiet emptiness that fills every corner of your existence. And when you stare into it, when you finally confront what has been lost, you realize that some doors once closed never open again. The dust settles, and what remains is quiet. The collapse leaves no fanfare, no grand finale, only silence, a silence that echoes in every corner of your mind, I sit now, 73, surrounded by reminders of what was, and what I have lost. Small things, photographs, gathering dust, letters I never sent, conversations I never had, moments I thought I would have forever, moments that vanished while I pretended I was safe. Regret is not loud. It does not scream. It hums. A low, constant vibration under your skin, in your chest, in your thoughts. You cannot ignore it. And yet, there is nothing you can do to undo it. I look back and see the choices, the inactions, the lies I told myself, every denial, every postponement, every tomorrow I will fix it. They were steps along the path to this quiet ruin. Some days, I replay moments endlessly, asking what if? What if I had acted sooner? What if I had listened? What if I had dared to admit the truth when it first appeared? But the answer is always the same: too late. And yet, there is something that comes with this awareness, a kind of clarity, harsh but undeniable. You see life for what it is. You see the fragility, the fleetingness, the delicate balance of choices that shape everything. And for the first time, you see yourself clearly. I am 73. I am regretful. I am exhausted. And I am aware. Awareness does not undo the past. Awareness does not restore what has been lost. Awareness is a burden, but also a lesson. If I could speak to my younger self, I would say, do not ignore the small warnings. Do not assume safety. Do not postpone love, care, or courage. Time is relentless, and it does not wait. And yet, speaking to my younger self is impossible. I am trapped in the aftermath of choices I made, and I must live with the weight of them. I see others walking along paths I once walked, making the same errors I made, ignoring the same cracks I ignored. And I feel a chill, knowing how easily history, personal history, repeats itself. Regret is a teacher, but it is cruel. It teaches only after the lesson has already cost you everything. And so, I sit and reflect on life, on choices, on the fragility of comfort, on the illusion of control, and the irreversible consequences of denial. And I realize there is one thing more terrifying than the collapse itself: the knowledge that it could have been prevented, if only I had chosen differently. Now, I speak to you, you listening, you watching, you thinking that life will always wait, that tomorrow is yours to shape, that the cracks you see today will somehow mend themselves. They once did. The same illusions that trapped me, the comfort, the routine, the small lies we tell ourselves will trap you too if you allow them. Look closely. Look at your life. The little warnings you've ignored, the opportunities you've postponed, the relationships you've taken for granted. Every choice matters. Every hesitation has weight. Every later is a step toward a point of no return you may not even see coming. I know this now. At 73, I know it in my bones. And you still have a chance to see the cracks, to act, to speak, to repair, to live deliberately, to face the truths you are trying to hide from yourself. But do not wait too long. Do not dismiss the subtle warnings. Do not tell yourself tomorrow will fix what you ignore today. Because once the point of no return passes, once the fractures have become irreparable, once regret takes hold, there is no going back. I speak to you from the edge of 73 years, from the weight of choices ignored, from the hollowness of time wasted, from the quiet aftermath that no one can see, but I feel every second of. And so I warn you, do not ignore the cracks. Do not believe in permanent safety. Do not wait for someone else to save you. See clearly. Act deliberately. Choose courage over comfort. And above all, before it's too late, look in the mirror and face your life honestly while you still can.